Archaeologists have uncovered a Pictish stone with 1,500-year-old inscriptions near Doon in Scotland. The Picts were a group of people who inhabited the areas of northern and eastern Scotland, north of the Firth of Forth, during late antiquity and the early Middle Ages. Picts are assumed to have been the descendants of the Caledonii and other Iron Age tribes, mentioned by Roman historians or on the world map of Ptolemy. The Picts, or Painted People, were so named around the 3rd century AD as a generalized exonym used by the Romans to describe those Britons north of the Forth Clyde Isthmus. Roman historians described their war paint and tattoos, with the Latin word picti meaning paint. The name continued to be used by outsiders, notably the Irish annalists and scholars such as Bede from the Kingdom of Northumbria of the Angles during the Middle Ages. A team of archaeologists and volunteers discovered a cross-slab stone in the old Kilmadock Cemetery near Doon, a burgh within Perthshire. The stone has a mysterious inscription written in a medieval alphabet called Ogham, and animal figural decorations depicting carved birds that dates to between AD 500 to 700. The stone likely survived as it was reused in much later times as a grave covering in the cemetery, giving the researchers new insights into the Ogham language, which were generally inscribed on stones to spell out the names of wealthy or powerful people. Around 400 Ogham inscriptions have been identified, mostly in Ireland, but the new discovery at Old Kilmadock is the first example to be found in central Scotland with this mysterious alphabet. Speaking to Live Science, Stirling Council archaeologist Murray Cook suggests that the stone was a public statue erected by a wealthy patron to celebrate both their Pictish heritage and their Christian faith. The Ogham reflects the influence of Irish Christians. This interpretation is supported by 3 additional stones found previously in the cemetery that have 2 different alphabets. I think this means they were a literate and an intelligent religious community, Cook said. There was probably a monastery.
Welcome to Blast World Mysteries. Please subscribe and like. Laser scans have revealed that what was thought to be an Iron Age hillfort in northwestern Spain is, in fact, an early medieval stronghold built in the 5th century AD and occupied for the next 200 years. Archaeologists in Spain got the surprise of a lifetime when they discovered the ruins of a powerful 5th century fortress, surrounded by a huge defensive wall in a dense forest, instead of the Iron Age fort they had been looking for. They reported in a new study. The team found the stronghold on a hilltop in northwestern Spain by using lighter light detection and ranging to peer beneath a forest covering the ruins. This technique, which bounces hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second off the landscape from an aircraft flying overhead, revealed an early medieval fortress covering about 25 acres 10 hectares, with 30 towers and a defensive wall about 3/4 of a mile. 1.2 kilometers long. The fortress seems to have been built in the first half of the 5th century AD, possibly on top of an earlier Iron Age hilltop fort, to defend against Germanic invaders, after Roman control of the region had collapsed. Study author Mario Fernandez Pereiro, an archaeologist at University College London, and the University of Santiago de Compostela, USC, told Live Science. The site, called Castro Valente, Bray Fort, is in the Galicia region's Padrón district, about 16 miles, 16 kilometers, southwest of the city of Santiago de Compostela. Locals thought Castro Valente had been built after the about 9th century BC by a Celtic people, called the Calisi in Latin, who lived in Galicia at that time. Another Celtic tribe, called the Astures, lived to the east in what's now the Spanish region of Asturias, while others, called the Lusitani, lived to the south in what's now Portugal, until they were subsumed by the expanding Roman Empire in the 1st century BC. The Calisi and the Astures formed the Castro culture of fortified hilltop settlements, and modern-day Galicia is filled with their ruins, according to the December 2022 study, published in Cuadernos de Arqueología de la Universidad de Navarra, Archaeological Journal of the University of Navarra. When Fernandez Pereiro and José Carlos Sánchez Pardo, also a USC archaeologist and co-author of the study, began researching the site, they also thought Castro Valente was a fortified Celtic settlement. But they soon found evidence that the buried structure was much larger than they expected, and that parts of it were built with methods not used in the Iron Age. The archaeological excavations continued to provide data that point us towards a time of post-Roman occupation, presumably in the first half of the 5th century, Fernandez Pereiro said in an email. The fortress's layout, construction and fragments of pottery found there suggest it was built after the Roman Empire lost control of the region in about the early 5th century AD. But the fortress seems to have been abandoned roughly 200 years later. Possibly because it was no longer needed, Fernandez Pereiro said. Future research may reveal more about it, as well as protect it from development, such as forest roads and wind farms. The team plans to regularly update their Facebook page, Castellas Noir, as research progresses. Ken Dark, an archaeologist at King's College London who wasn't involved in the study, told Live Science that the 5th century Castro Valente site seemed to be based on the reuse of a Celtic fort, something that was also seen in Britain after the collapse of Roman rule. In the 5th and 6th centuries AD, many Britons from what are now Wales and Cornwall fled the Anglo-Saxon invasion by immigrating to Galicia, alongside the more famous migration of Britons to what's now known as Brittany in western France, he said. It is fascinating to find a site like this in a region strongly associated with Britain during late antiquity, Dark said. Archaeologists from pre-construct archaeology have uncovered an ancient ring ditch during development works of the Dove Valley Park in Derbyshire, England. Evidence of archaeological features were first identified from crop marks and aerial photographs, suggesting the presence of several ring ditches and linear ditches. Excavations have confirmed the existence of the features through a process of trial trenches, where archaeologists conducted a strip, map and sample excavation to fully reveal and investigate the remains. Ring ditches are typically a trench of circular or penannular plan cut into bedrock. The term is most often used as a generic description in cases where there is no clear evidence for the function of the site. For instance, where it has been plowed flat and is known only as a crop mark or a geophysical anomaly. Excavation suggests that the ring ditch is prehistoric in origin, with a similar feature excavated in the vicinity during the 1990s. Dating from the Bronze Age. Archaeologists have interpreted the site as a stock enclosure, an ancient pound for the accommodation of livestock. The study has revealed a possible entrance to the enclosure, with evidence of recutting of the ring ditch that suggests maintenance of the site and possible longevity of use. The long linear ditch is believed to be a post-medieval boundary for the demarcation of land, running west-east to the north of the ring ditch, PCA archaeologists said. These discoveries add to our understanding of the area's rich history and provides fascinating insights into the way our ancestors lived and worked.
Archaeologists have rediscovered a pre-Hispanic fresco depicting mythological scenes in northern Peru that they had only seen in black and white photographs that were more than a century old. It's an exceptional discovery, first of all, because it is rare to unearth wall paintings of such quality in pre-Columbian archaeology, said Sam Gavami, the Swiss archaeologist who led excavations that uncovered the mural in October. Gavami spent 4 years looking for the rock painting, which he believes could be around 1,000 years old, with a team of Peruvian students. The composition of this painting is unique in the history of mural art in pre-Hispanic Peru, added the archaeologist, who trained at the University of Freiburg in Germany. The fresco forms part of the Huaca Pintada temple, which belonged to the Moche civilization that flourished between the 1st and 8th centuries, and venerated the moon, the rain, iguanas, and spiders. The uncovered mural is about 30 meters, 98 feet, long, and its images in blue, brown, red, white, and mustard yellow paint remain extremely well preserved. In one section, a procession of warriors can be seen heading toward a bird-like deity. The painted images appear to be inspired by the idea of a sacred hierarchy built around a cult of ancestors and their intimate links with the forces of nature, said Gavami. He told AFP that deciphering the mural's message would form part of his research, but he believes it could be interpreted as a metaphorical image of the political and religious order of the region's ancient inhabitants. The discovery is also unusual as it shows a mixture of styles and elements of two pre-Incan cultures, the Moche and the Lambayeque, who lived on Peru's north coast between 900 and 1350 AD. The mural's existence was only known via black and white photos taken in 1916 by the German ethnologist Hans Heinrich Brüning, who was living in Peru when he heard of the site after treasure hunters tried to loot it, but found nothing of value. As the years went on, thick foliage took over, and no one had tried to look for the paintings until it piqued Gavami's interest and he went in search of the long-lost fresco. However, first he had a long battle to obtain permission from the family who owned the land where the mural was found.
Egypt has restored, documented and opened to tourists the Middle Kingdom tomb of Meru, the oldest site accessible to the public on Luxor's West Bank, home to some of its most spectacular pharaonic monuments, including the Valley of the Kings. Meru was a high-ranking official at the court of the 11th dynasty king Mentuhotep II, who reigned until 2004 BC and who, like Meru, was buried at the necropolis of North Asosif, the ministry said in a statement on Thursday. Meru's rock-hewn tomb was restored by the Polish Center for Mediterranean Archaeology at the University of Warsaw and Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. This is the first site from such an early period in western Thebes to be made accessible to visitors, the ministry statement quoted Fathi Yassin, General Director of Antiquities in Upper Egypt, as saying. The tomb, which faced the Procession Avenue to Mentuhotep II's temple, contains a corridor leading to an offering chapel with a niche for a statue of the deceased. A burial shaft descends to a burial chamber with a sarcophagus. This is the only decorated room of the tomb, with an unusual decoration of painting on lime plaster, Yassin said. Meru's tomb had been known since at least the mid-19th century, according to the Polish-Egyptian Archaeological Mission. Italian conservators cleaned some of the wall paintings in 1996. Some of the Middle Kingdom's most prominent officials were buried at North Asosif, the statement said.